The film begins with a man named Bone being imprisoned. There, he attracts the attention of a gang of troublemakers who intend to target him. Bone, to their astonishment, reveals himself to be a competent martial artist and quickly subdues them. Bone is eventually released from prison and heads to Los Angeles. He gets lodging in the flat of a woman named Tamara. Tamara urges him to behave properly while living there and establishes some ground rules. Meanwhile, the action turns to underground brawls staged by James, the leader of a gang. Hammerman, James's fearsome fighter, is noted for his undefeated record and fierce fighting style. That night, Hammerman will battle a boxer supported by a local fight promoter named Pinball. Pinball's fighter, on the other hand, is no match for Hammerman. The powerful Hammerman easily overcomes him, and if Pinball hadn't intervened, he could have been gravely harmed. Pinball unwillingly turns over the money to the imposing James because he lost the bet. Pinball is surprised to discover Bone waiting for him when he returns to his car. Bone requests that Pinball set him up as an underground fighter so that he can take on Hammerman. Pinball is initially cautious about staking his money on someone he doesn't know. Bone, on the other hand, manages to entice him with an intriguing offer, offering to make it worthwhile for Pinball to take him on. They make their way to the battle arena, where Bone meets James and his girlfriend, Angela. James, falsely believing Bone is interested in Angela, urges him to avoid her. Pinball quickly arranges Bone's first bout against a strong opponent. To everyone's surprise, Bone thoroughly dominates the battle, defeating his opponent with only 2 kicks. Pinball decides to become Bone's promoter after being impressed by his abilities. Bone accepts, but his main purpose is to confront Hammerman. He also asks about Angela, causing Pinball to tell him a heartbreaking story. Angela was previously married to Danny, but James framed him for a triple murder and imprisoned him. When James found out Angela was pregnant, he forced her to have an abortion. He has been gaining control of her ever since. Later on, we see James conversing with his business partner, who owes them money. However, when demanding the cash, James becomes violent, displaying his ruthless and mafia-like personality. Later, James learns of Bone's tremendous fighting abilities. The next day, Bone makes friends with Roberto, an old tenant of the same apartment complex. They spend a lot of time together, bonding and playing chess. That evening, Pinball reappears and challenges Bone to a fight in which he must face numerous opponents at the same time. It's a task to boost his popularity so James can arrange a fight between him and Hammerhand. To everyone's surprise, Bone excels and climbs to fame in the underground fighting scene, defeating every opponent in his path and amassing large sums of money for himself and Pinball. Bone remains grounded and devotes himself to intense training every day in order to become a stronger fighter. They continue on several fighting tours, with Bone remaining unrivaled and even improving Pinball's financial standing. Tamara expresses worry and care for him as he returns to his flat with injuries one evening. She is particularly concerned about Jared, who has been down recently. As a result, Bone decides to cheer up Jared by teaching him some basic martial arts movements. Meanwhile, James reveals his true heartless nature once more, performing a horrific act by murdering a woman in an alley. This time, Roberto, who happened to be passing by, witnessed the heinous crime. That night, Hammerhead was getting ready to battle. Bone finally seizes the opportunity to fight Hammerman, and to everyone's amazement, he easily defeats the fearsome foe without suffering any damage. This takes James completely by surprise. James gives Pinball the bet money and extends an offer to Bone and Pinball to join him for dinner. As it turns out, James wants Bone to be the chief fighter in the Consortium, a multinational underground fighting gang comprised of prominent and wealthy individuals. He wants Bone to take on Pretty Boy Price, the current champion. Bone, on the other hand, is unsure and asks for some time to consider the offer. In a private conversation, James advises Angela, his girlfriend, to use seduction to sway Bone's choice. During their conversation, Bone reveals that he was imprisoned with Angela's late husband, Danny, who was executed on James' instructions. Following Danny's death, Bone vowed to free Angela from James' captivity. Angela reveals that she had a son after Danny's imprisonment, but lost custody of him, and has no idea where he is now. Bone informs her that he knows where her son is and promises to bring them together. Angela must, however, conquer her addiction before recovering custody of her child. They come up with a scheme, and Bone tells James that he will rethink the offer if he can take Angela away that night. Angela is escorted to a drug rehabilitation center by Bone. The following day, James visits a tough mobster called Franklin McVeigh and offers him $5 million in exchange for the consortium's consent and the arrangement of a battle between Bone and Price. Bone receives sad news that evening. Roberto, an old man from their apartment complex, was viciously murdered in front of their home. As Roberto had observed one of James' earlier killings, he was accountable. Tamara is devastated by Roberto's death, and Bone tries to console her. James unexpectedly pays Bone a visit and informs him that he has set up a match with Price for him. However, Bone informs him that he has not yet agreed to fight for him. This enrages James since he made a non-refundable $5 million deposit. Tensions rise between them, and James threatens him with the death of one of his people if he does not fight. Later, Hammerman goes on a rampage at a pub, attacking Pinball in an attempt to find Bone. He seeks vengeance, and Pinball is on the verge of being overwhelmed. Bone, fortunately, arrives just in time to rescue him. Finally, Bone declines James's promise to fight for him. James sends his enforcers to the drug recovery clinic in search of Angela. Bone, on the other hand, had already transported her to a secure area, making them unable to locate her. They instead approach Bone at the clinic, but he expertly defeats them one by one. As a result, James persuades Bone to accompany him to the McVeigh residence. He insists that Bone battle Price for the money, threatening Angela, Tamara, Jared, and Pinball if he complies. Prior to the fight, Bone confesses that he was extremely good friends with Danny and wishes to revenge Danny's sad death by bringing James to justice and freeing Danny's wife and son from James's malicious control. Surprisingly, James confesses to all of the evil things he committed, including framing and hurting Danny and eventually ordering his death while incarcerated. Unbeknownst to James, Bone secretly filmed his confession using a GPS-enabled phone and forwarded it to Pinball's phone. Pinball immediately forwards the video to the cops. Pretty Boy Price appears shortly after, marking the highly anticipated showdown that everyone has been waiting for. Both Bone and Price are formidable fighters, displaying their exceptional abilities in a tough battle. Bone cleverly captures Price, immobilizing him. However, just as Bone is about to win, he concedes, admitting defeat. James, enraged, launches a katana attack on Bone. When McVeigh sees this, he orders his guards to give Bone a katana to level the odds. Bone grips the sword but fights with only the sheath. In the middle of pandemonium, he effortlessly overpowers James. Bone handles the blade, and by chance, James ends up slicing his own hand. Bone manages to elude capture before the police arrive at the Fame Mansion rendezvous to apprehend James. A few days later, Angela pays a visit to Bone's flat building, and a joyful revelation occurs. Tamara, who had threatened to evict Bone because of his relationship with James, has changed her mind. She makes an invitation to Bone to remain at her flat, but he politely rejects it, knowing the possibility of future issues. Before leaving, Bone hands Tamara an envelope containing cash and entrusts her with Angela's care once she has completely healed. He bids Pinball farewell, explaining that he has some business to attend to bringing the movie to the end. Thanks for watching. If you are new, don't forget to subscribe for more of these recaps. Until next time, have a nice day.